Good evening, this is a meeting of the Hampden Board of Selectmen and the Board of Health being held in the Townhouse on October 21st, 2024. This meeting is being conducted in person and remotely using video conferencing technology. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is anyone recording the meeting other than ourselves? Kristen Rivers from the Wolverhampton Hampden Times. Thank you, Kristen. So this evening it's going to be a little bit different. We have some items on the Selectmen's agenda, and at 7 o'clock we'll be moving to the advisory committee public hearing, from which we'll adjourn. Unfortunately, that hearing is not being zoomed, so you can come on down by 7 o'clock if you can participate. Any minutes?
No.
Thornton Burgess building assessment. What words of wisdom do you have?
How do we want to do this? So it's a big nut to crack. So it's still in draft form. We haven't had the final version yet, but we're told that it's pretty much just a quality control, quality assurance review that's going to take place. So we don't anticipate that there'll be many changes. So what's printed out in your packet is Appendix A, which is a table showing the different recommended improvements that are needed, and it also has what they call a recommended action category, or the immediacy of the repair or improvement that would be needed.
Appendix A or K?
It's Appendix K in the report. Yep, K. So there's so they rank things as immediate. A, so immediate means 0 to 1 years, A is 1 to 5 years, B is 6 to 10 years. There's not that many immediate items that they mention. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
I'm sure not a very expensive one either.
Probably around 20 items that list as immediate, but a lot of them are minor in the sense that, you know, a couple of them there was utility guy wires were anchored into the brick veneer wall, so it's pulling it out. So that needs to be addressed. And some of them are minor. It talks about they couldn't verify that the door to the mechanical room was fire rated because it was painted over and the tag probably came off. They talked about fire rated caulking around any of the penetrations into the mechanical room. A couple items talk about the kitchen, so the kitchen exhaust, the kitchen MAU, the makeup air unit, which I don't know if we need to replace if we're not going to use it. I mean, that was a big ticket item, $80,000. Some miscellaneous electrical and plumbing items, emergency exits and lights are one of the things that they mentioned as an immediate need. Some smaller plumbing things, some accessibility things, so handicap accessibility outside of the building. They were suggesting that we have some handicap ramps to the sidewalks, so there's an accessible pathway. Obviously, there would need to be some restriping in the parking lot. They mentioned restriping and paving in the parking lot for the number of van units and handicap accessible parking lot spaces that would be needed based on the usage. Having walked through the building, there are a number of ceiling tiles that have water stains on them really throughout, and I don't know what is above those. I mean, it's probably needs a good coat of paint.
Are we concerned about, when you say water in the ceilings, and obviously a recent topic, are we concerned about any mold, and have they done analysis for that?
I can't say with confidence. I don't know, especially in light of the experience I was just had. There didn't seem to be any active leaks that when I talked with the facilities director about, he didn't think there was any active leaks. And the roof seemed to be in fairly good shape based on the report. You know, one of the things that's obvious when you walk in, there's the old fluorescent light fixtures all throughout the building. I think they said there's around 131 of those. I know there's utility rebates available for those as well. And so right now they have in terms of the HVA system, in terms of heat and air exchange, it's a little bit of a, I think they have natural gas there. It doesn't have any, there's a small number of heat pumps, of mini splits that are in there that provide cooling, I think, to the offices and the handful of classrooms that are currently being used. So that would be a topic for discussion as well.
You mentioned the ceiling tiles with the water stains. I know the roof, they had listed as A and B, not immediate.
Yeah.
Does that have anything to do with the water staining though?
I think it's part of a larger discussion with the facilities director there. But yeah, when we talked about it, he didn't seem to think there was anything that was active. Or at least not anything major that was active. But overall, it seemed to be in fairly good shape.
Do you think these prices are accurate, though? I mean, I'm just looking at, for instance, on page, is that the way you spell architectural? Is that
No, they forgot an I.
I'm like, okay. On page 3, I guess, when they talk about replacing the windows, is that an area of it? Because it doesn't say how many.
Windows and louvers?
Right, but how many? And Don, you may recall this. A few years back, they were talking about doing windows at maybe Stony Hill or Sewell Road, and it was a huge number. And I look at 130 for windows here, and they go over the 2 windows upstairs, 6,000. Yeah, I just,
Maybe they're just talking about a small group of them or something.
that's what I'm trying to get a sense of. But it doesn't really say here if this is a limited group. I would have to think that if they're concerned about one outside window, they're concerned about all of them.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it could be like, you remember the walkthrough at Green Meadows, and Daryl was showing just 2 classrooms that really had a vent problem. So maybe there's a subset.
And really the windows are just because they're not thermally efficient windows.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Oh, no, but I just go back to when we had that thing several years back at Sewell Road. It was, they were talking going to MSBA for the number, it was so big.
The roofing here looks really cheap too.
That did look cheap, but Brian has talked about the fact there are some options out there. If you wanna put it out to some of the mass solar groups, you can offset the cost of that roof quite substantially. Hard to believe the windows cost less than the ceiling tiles.
Yeah. And they had the fire suppression system at $575.
I saw that, yeah.
Thought that was more than that too.
But again, this gets back into the square foot thing. Like I was saying to Don, how much is square footage of where you have people working all the time, where you have a crowd? And are there different ways you do fire suppression? What is that, what was the kitchen MAU for
The
80,000?
makeup air unit. So I think that provides fresh air through the hood into the kitchen. I think it replaces I think that's how they work.
Okay,
The makeup air units,
So-
as the air's getting sucked up from the stove and pushed outside, it's sucking in air. So I think it's part of the ventilation system.
okay, so would that be a decision by our board? Do we still want a kitchen?
I would think so. We just say
And-
we're not going to use it.
That, I mean, that's something we have to talk about, but if it's a shelter, what type of kitchen, I mean, is it just something to prepare basic things? We don't need the stove, we don't need the big whatever, but I
Yeah,
mean, if we're gonna renovate that part, and I'm sure Parks and Rec would have their eye on it, you know.
yeah. I mean, it's a massive kitchen that served the middle school
Right.
to cook for hundreds of students. It doesn't seem that we would
And
need something of that scale.
And pretty out of date too,
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe the employee break room.
Well, they had one next to it already,
Oh, is there one right there?
yeah,
Yeah.
in between that and the hallway leading up.
Okay, so let's say it's July 1st. What are we gonna get done? I don't talk about the move, I'm talking about these things here.
Yeah.
Well, they don't really have to get them.
Right, so, I mean, my first recommendation is we need a decision. We need an initial decision about the fire suppression units. And maybe that's a letter from the board to the building commissioner and the fire chief saying, we need a decision on this. And we can say, if the board has a position that it's not required, we can tell them why, and they need to decide, because that's going to take the longest and be the most expensive by far out of all these other things that were listed.
I mean, if we're not doing the roof, we're not doing the parking lot, that's your big number right there. Right.
Yeah.
You know, would you then say, there's quite a bit of this that needs to be accomplished prior to moving in, because you can't be doing this work while people are there. Some of these things here. It's foolish to talk about fixing the ceilings and stuff while Lauren is working in her office or whatever. There's a certain amount of prep work prior to bringing the operation over.
I think it's more efficient to do it that
Right,
way.
right.
I mean, emergency exits and lighting, I think would be something that's required. That's a life safety issue, right? As to people being able to get out of the building. You know, some of the plumbing items, I think need to get done. I'll come back to this comment about the library. And then there's a couple other of these items that are code issues. And I was thinking today, maybe, I mean, if we could further refine these into a project, a lot of these different smaller things into a project where we could get a contractor in. It seems to make sense.
I guess what I'm wondering is, if there's offices in there now, and there's a transitional class in there.
Yep.
Now, and I don't know, how many offices, it's 4 or 5 offices in there, there's,
But pretty much everything is down to the left.
right.
Yep.
So, I guess wondering what would need to be done. I know we have to do these things in the long run, but I'm just
Yeah.
thinking, come July 1st, do you move a portion of the offices in there, the offices that are already being used, and you don't have to do anything there, and they can work in the other part, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the other thing we need to figure out is IT too.
Right.
That's supposed to be a big thing for day one.
Yeah, I'd like to get a IT assessment of that building.
I also like to know what they're leaving. Are they leaving their Wi-Fi infrastructure, or are they taking it out as part of theirs?
Right.
Or did we pay for it because it was on the tax rate?
Yeah, I think that's part of a discussion that needs to happen with the school for a lot of the stuff.
Right.
Just the IT stuff and also all the other stuff that's what we consider personal property.
A couple things do bother me about, you know, you talk about the emergency lights and stuff like that, and like, you still have been operating, even though it wasn't a full school, you had the transition there. Why weren't you taking care of that? Why wasn't this coming up to bring it in code, keep it in code and stuff like that? And
Under
So-
the yearly maintenance thing that they do. right?
basically, yeah. Kick the can down the road, and certainly we've done that here a little bit, but.
Yeah, and also
Is that because they didn't have to?
I think so.
You know, it's.
Well, I guess the next question is, they didn't have to? And honestly, this is where I don't, you know, it's not to me under immediate. It's been fine for them, the lights do work, it shows exit out here. This goes into your A category. And to replace a light that says exit in the hallway, doesn't disturb the working environment. This is something you
That's what
accomplish.
I mean, there's things we can
Right.
do that.
You know, if we hire a person, that's what they do during the day. So I think we've done here, or what they've done here, we need to refine it a little bit. But doesn't that get into also, we gotta finish the floor plan? Cause we don't know what we're fixing until we know where people are going.
yeah, and I mean, for a lot of the building, we have 30 by 35, 30 by 30 classrooms that are big, large rooms, empty spaces.
How big is this room?
Less than that.
Yeah, it's definitely less than that. And there's no separation to speak of between, there's no service area with members of the public that are coming in. So, I think we need to figure out, you know, within those classrooms, how's that gonna happen?
So are we
classrooms
talking
or
about
office.
having to buy those modular, half walls or three, they have them.
Yeah, cubicle things, but I mean, and
could
I
be
think
something
you
that-
also mentioned, do we need some desks at the entrance, like, they have in the assessor's office, for example, or the town clerk? Right,
Or some of them have just it's pretty much cabinets or shelving with one side is a counter with a
Mhm.
with a half wall, and then the top is the service
Right.
counter, and there's different ADA requirements in terms of height and clearance that need to be done with those, but
You're also leading into another topic of what's publicly accessible and what's considered workspace and private.
Right.
We have to designate that too.
Yeah.
We have to go out to Granby and look at what they did with that middle school over there.
mhm.
Yeah.
Was it
They
a-
changed it their town.
Was it a one-floor middle
One
school?
floor, same type of thing, yeah.
yep.
I mean, the one thing about Thornton Burgess, doors, there must be 16 outside doors there at least. No, and if you wanna sectionalize off, okay, to get to the library, like we talked before, you can,
Create a separate thing.
exactly, if you are keeping some offices open late, you don't need the middle open or something like that. And Brian and I talked about, there might be one point, we have to add a couple of control doors inside. And I think that's gonna be important to make sure these are under electronic control, you know what I mean, Craig, where somebody can.
What about security? We have cameras here
Mhm.
and, the card access. We're gonna need something there too, especially if you're talking about segregating it out into separate wings.
And
And if we're around at back at night and there's no lights or cameras,
Right.
security reasons, we might wanna look into that.
especially if we can move the server over, but we got most of these cameras from Tony, certainly not enough for what's over there.
I probably wouldn't wanna go with that system again. It's the one we're using now. It's slow when you try to use the remote functions of it or anything like that.
Mhm. Are they using a different one for other buildings, or
Yeah, when.
this
before-
is the Agilon or something like
Do they
that?
have one there
Yeah,
now?
yeah.
Do they have one there now?
No,
They have very few there now. They have one, I think one in the front lobby. And I think they have a couple on the exterior, but that's about it. I think that's what they showed us
I
last
know
time.
when we were talking about doing cameras here, Mike Meany had talked about wanting to wire it in through the police station.
Mhm.
And he could have monitored it from there, so. Might be an option for TWB.
So we had
Well,
go ahead.
they monitor, but they're not there. Don't we want them to go dispatch where they're 24/7?
Well, it can still go
Yeah.
to wherever, but you have a central location and then you can still pull it.
Pretty soon they got between us and Belchertown and Wolverham, they're gonna, must be flipping 300 images through 17 screens, basically, looking boom, 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 yeah.
It worked well that one time here.
I heard that. So, but again, not the set of thing, but we have to figure out who's going where and the best use of the space. Brian, you had a good layout. I like that Excel sheet you had too, which talked about hours, spaces needed, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I did have a visit. Obviously, we toured the building with the library last week, and it was a good visit, but it really drove home to me that moving the library is really, I mean, it's related, but it's almost its own, it's its own thing, in terms of layout, in terms of moving. I mean, I don't know that Ty and Bond has the expertise to. Maybe they do. It's not a conversation we have, but to move a library and what are the needs of the library, I think is something that they don't have a very good hand on.
They also run their own IT up there too. They have the
I got-
CDMR stuff.
I have to tell you, I think the library has enough things going on in the state. They probably have more access to people to do that type of thing. Like you said, CW Mars handles the IT. I bet they could
Yeah.
reach out and find, so to speak, the people they pay money to that give them things,
Or maybe
that provide all,
get funding for that,
could be.
to redesign or
And they
redo.
do have some funds too
library.
available to them to start and fund things like that.
So I think in terms of that, it's important that, reasonably soon we can identify the space that might be available for them. And say, this is what's the possibility.
What did they think about your layout? Did you show them that?
Yeah, I think they were okay in terms of the size of what was suggested, but they had a suggestion that moved closer to the front so that there was what they would maybe do as like the children's library area, which would be 2 adjoining classrooms. It would be right across from the main library, so parents could see inside. They had a lot of good discussions about what they thought.
But that is in a row of 4 classrooms, where if they go to the back of the library, it's only 2 across the way. And basically now they have that whole square going back. And we're not putting them 2, but then 2 business offices next to them, which would be if they came out the front. Because it's a balance for everybody.
Brian had a good point
Yeah.
too about that front entrance there, using it as after-hours meeting rooms for boards and committees. You go in and then there's just a couple of rooms available.
Right, I mean, not to put the library in a bad spot, but if they had the back to the library there, if they're doing, I mean, you've got the back entrance, light it well, whatever, and
There's a
then
straight sidewalk down the side. Anyway.
exactly right, you know? There's actually a couple doors on that side too, I believe, as well. So,
They could have their own little big
What?
entrance on the side over there.
and my understanding, everything's on the table right now, there's only one room that's spoken for, right?
Clerks.
No, I'm told Mr. Gray wants his classroom
Oh, I
back,
did hear that.
Mo
Yeah.
Gray, which, you know, it's understandable.
He's gotta pay.
He's still got the key, he told me, so.
He's gotta pay for the roof.
I think my kid still owes him a couple of papers.
Is that true or something?
So there are a number of items here that once the district moves out, you know, we could start working on.
If we're going to ask for $100,000,
Yeah,
you know, what can we do with that before we have to afford the big money?
yeah,
I think we have to start with what needs to be renovated inside the building.
Yeah.
And like you said, we don't technically have it until this date, they're out on that date. You know, whatever we can do in the sparks we have, if you need to,
Are we looking to
Clean-
go back in spring for more money too?
yes.
Yeah.
But I mean,
This
if you wanna
doesn't
do,
include
if you
moving
wanna do
costs.
ceilings right now, get a mold assessment, replace the ceiling, stuff like, that's what's gotta be done before people go in. I don't think 100's enough.
I'm gonna go back and say IT. That's gonna be probably more expensive than we think.
Probably
Right.
so, yeah.
and it's
That's
also,
a day one thing that's gotta be done.
it's also the items that will take a longer period of time too, because, I mean, we could ask for money at the annual town meeting, so May, when would that be available, if it was available funds? Well, we wouldn't have available funds at that meeting, unless we use stabilization funds, right?
Well, that's it, but Craig brings up a point. We do have some equipment here. When you talk about IT, then you go back to entree and said, okay, we're moving from 5,000 square feet to that. Obviously, the Wi-Fi is gonna change. But
Right.
what do we have here that's gonna overlay back over there, even though it's spread out more?
Not
Now you're
much.
into, yeah, but you're into backbone wiring.
Yeah.
You're not pulling the wires out of the wall here.
No.
Right,
Right.
right.
And
So,
then
hopefully they're not
probably
doing-
New nodes too, or whatever,
Mhm.
new
well,
access
look
points.
what we've gotten from the district in the past 2 years. They had to upgrade all their switches, right? It's, and you said that's just how it is.
Right.
You know, it's a cost of business.
Right.
It's-
Well, my question is, are they leaving them? If they're leaving them, then we can reuse them,
Mhm.
you know? Did they re-upgrade that school? I don't know.
Well, there's the thing, I mean, our use for the switches they had, I mean, they had you look at Minichog, they've got every kid with they needed a level of integration with the switches that we're not gonna have or need. Last year's model may be fine for what we're doing. We don't need next year's model until we can afford to do next year's in a couple of years.
I think we need to really have Brian reach out to the school district to see what are they leaving?
Mhm.
Because we can't say, you know, for infrastructure wise, for
Yeah.
IT, then
Mhm.
we don't know. You know, if they're leaving good stuff or if it's outdated, you know, there's two things there too.
Yeah.
Don, I hate to throw this out here. Do you want a working group to help you? I go back to when we did the renovation here, Bob Berger and stuff like that. We, you know, kick around some people that just, I throw it to you. It's a lot on you and this is a big
A
project.
small one, yeah.
Yeah, 3 or
Yeah.
4 people that you could delegate different things.
I
to.
think it can get unwieldy
Oh,
quickly.
I'm not talking 9, 10, 3 or 2, 3, 4, something like that.
Usually 3 is a good number, I think,
Okay.
of knowledgeable people
Right.
who can do the work cheaper. I'm
What
just
about
kidding.
the current custodial staff over there? Would he be
I
interested?
think it's
in
key
being
to
in the
get
working group?
Herb's input, right?
Yeah.
He knows every tile, you know. Maybe there's things he's been trying to get done and have been budget constraints to stop. They said, look, you give me 50,000, I got that those 3 corridors done. Pick his brain.
Right, so,
And he may even want the job after.
so the working group, I'm just thinking out loud, you know, maybe Herb's one of the people on it,
Sure.
you know, the facilities manager.
Mhm.
You don't have
Yep.
one.
Yeah.
And then, maybe Mark, because Mark might be doing some stuff,
Mark Lango.
you know, mechanical wise, you know,
Mm.
parking lot,
About the building
plowing,
commissioner.
building
I was
inspector.
thinking him, but I was also thinking.
He's also gonna be making
James, but I don't know,
decisions.
'cause James really got knowledge.
that.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
You know,
Wendell might be making decisions on the building.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
Yeah. Be
I'm thinking like
generated
Jane,
part
but I mean,
2.
we still have the date with Jane too, but I mean, she certainly has a pretty good working knowledge of, you know, how things operate.
Yeah.
Put it out there, I mean, I would just say, put it out to the staff and,
Get a small group.
yeah,
If you allow the town administrator to appoint them, then the open meeting law wouldn't, while meetings would be open, it wouldn't, we wouldn't have to be, wouldn't be subject to the open meeting law, but,
so an ad hoc or what do we call it?
Yeah.
Yeah, if they report to him,
Right.
we don't have to do the open meeting, they can meet anytime and.
Someone asked me, are we renaming the building?
We are.
Davenport?
Farnbridge Town Hall.
well, we have a donation account, so. Just kidding.
Well,
We wanna sell the naming rights, right?
do we have a name for our library?
This library?
Yes.
That's a good question. I know the other library, there's a whole thing outside with 5 plaques at the school library. I don't know.
I know, it's the Hampden Public.
Hampden Free Public Library.
Right.
So why couldn't we name it the Thornton Burgess Library? The Hampden Thornton W. Burgess Library.
And Free Town Hall.
Freetown Hall.
Live free or die town hall. So, just something,
I thought of that too, you know.
yeah. So, and then of course, people ask, what are you doing with this building? My suggestion also of, people like the idea of getting their old lockers, so rather than throwing away, they'll take their locker.
There's a lot we need to do in this, and we really need to focus on it
right.
every meeting,
Right.
you know.
But just like, you know,
Cause it's gotta be done right, and it's gonna be costly in the long run, but in the end, it's gonna be
But
much better for the
but again, it's a
town.
big project, that's
Yeah.
why, you know, just like having the water commissioners helping
Yeah.
Brian with the water thing, you
Yeah.
know, it's, you know,
And then we gotta pay attention to the 1 year, 5 year, 10-year stuff that
We need
we
to keep up on it.
suggest, and
Yep.
keep up on it, you know, even if we have to allocate money each town meeting for, you know, to
Yep.
put it in the bank.
any grant out there, you talk about the
Yeah.
IT thing.
Yeah.
You recall that grant that Bob got one time for
Yeah.
IT, I was like, community compact,
If you're in
Yeah.
compact, yeah.
I mean, it's that type of thing available.
Yeah.
You say it's more than 25, yeah, but it'll be 25 less than what we have to pay if we
I
get
think
it.
That was 250.
I think the IT grants are 250, right? I think
Are
we
they?
were looking at those.
But that wasn't coming out until a few months from now, right?
January, I think it's released in January.
We should be fine, though.
So if we do the IT assessment,
If we do the IT assessment, then we can.
Between
see
now
what
and
we
then.
need, and to put it in.
I don't know what Entree would want for the IT assessment, but that's part of what this, that's part of what this money, if we get this money, then we can pay for the IT assessment, and we can, you know, we can start,
We're paid for that now out of the IT budget, right? Are we
I
See
think
what they,
that's
see what they have.
pretty tight, yeah. You know, in a lot of the report talk, you know, a lot of that cost is HVAC stuff. Cause the building is just so large that, and the systems are just natural gas, you know, natural gas and individual exhaust.
It's not air
units.
conditioned now, is it?
No, that's why I
No.
said they have the mini splits now, but now you need an assessment, like, do we stay with the mini splits, or do we go ahead and buy? Or you know, we got mini splits lining up and down here,
It's supposed to
because
do.
the building's inefficient putting and venting in.
Right.
But if that's got a system that can be vented, then what's it gonna take the central air down the? Again, though,
Zone.
you're back
Zone.
to, what's the layout,
Right, so
you know?
Right, and the library at least talked, they talked a lot about the need to have more humidity control and temperature control for their collection, so I mean, that's, it's just different needs than a typical office.
Do they have any Did they have anything split upstairs now?
They have AC up there now, yeah.
I think they control humidity with the AC, the AC units. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of work to do. The building's in very good shape. My goal was to try to work within the existing layout so that we can save costs that way by not having to divide and subdivide spaces.
But the bottom line is, if anybody questions it, we're resolute, we're moving forward. We've done the work with the school committee, they've turned it back, and we're committed to proceeding forward with moving the town hall operation to the building on Wilbraham Road. We'd like to get it done by this time, but we're not gonna put it into our heads to get it done without doing it right. If it takes a little longer to get it right, we're gonna get it right. Cause it's hard to fix things when you got people working in the middle of it. Right. And we're looking for people that would like to volunteer, bring their name to Brian with a certain skill set and see if they can be of help.
Industrial HVAC people,
Mhm.
commercial, yeah, let us know.
Right, and if they have.
Painters,
And good
commercial
point.
painters,
And if they wanna donate and take a little tax write-off, that's even better, right?
electricians, yeah,
We could name that HVAC unit after
we
them,
could.
the Smith AC unit. The Davenport AC unit.
Davenport light switch.
Both of them?
It doesn't work.
Doesn't work. All right, we got any other discussion about the further discussion of funding articles, special town meeting, anything to
Yes.
report? Yes.
Yes, okay, so what's our number for the TWB article? Are we staying with 100? I mean, I have to say from this report here, like, okay, what door are you spending 100 on? I mean, should it be, Brian, this is the money you have until July 1st.
Could,
You could
I mean,
use
we
all
could-
the free
we could
cash
u-
right
We
now.
could probably use it. I mean, just to do the lights, we would spend everything to do the lights.
Well, you don't know that. I think you're right. There are good programs out there that are
There's
They could do
82,000.
anywhere from,
Yeah, I mean,
50% or
it's
whatever.
82,000. I mean, we could spend half of that on lights and then, so. Painting, I mean, what's painting per square foot now commercially?
Oh, that's volunteer,
$2,
that's
$3.
volunteer work.
Can we do that with the Department of Corrections?
You wanna do,
It's possible. I mean, they did a great
Possibly.
job at the park, yeah. No, DOC people, for that type of work, maybe painting or whatever, yeah.
you wanna up that?
We were clear that it was just a wild ass guess to begin with. Right.
Yeah,
And now you got some facts behind you.
we will spend more than that. We could spend more than that.
We
We're going 150?
150 at least.
I think after our discussion last week, we understand we're in good shape. The financial team has said, look, as a consequence of voting the thing, we're appreciative of the tax bill, stuff like that. But we're gonna save money by moving over there. This is.
If you do 200, you only spend 150, it goes, cause it's a warrant article,
It
it
stays
stays,
forever.
so we
Right.
can still spend it
Yep.
Yeah.
come July.
And go back to,
200.
Yeah.
and go back to, Cliff was talking about, there are still accounts there that haven't been fully
Right,
swept.
right.
You know, he talks about the police station account, things like that, and I think you mentioned there was as much as 48,000 left in that, you know?
Well, we'll ask for 200.
I'll be a little surprised the advisor, oh, by the way.
No, you guys misunderstood.
Yeah,
All right, anything else, wanna
I
add
think it's
anything
it.
else? Wanna subtract anything?
can't avoid those two new selectmen.
Do we have we're sticking with the generator number?
I don't think we'll spend all that, but I, that's the bid we got the first time. I'd like to think we could save 10 grand off that by doing the excavating and pad from the highway, but
We don't have prices.
So that's where we can sweep it after it's done and just whatever's left over, take it back.
Whatever's not spent can go back to free cash.
And the 20 for the voting thing, that's a hard number?
The estimate was like 18 and some change, I believe.
Is that for 450?
Yeah, that was for the 400.
Were they gonna apply the 45, the rental?
Yeah, he said he would. Yeah, they would apply it to.
Everything but the labor. Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember back to the email.
Yeah, it wasn't not the sending the people out, but the cost of the rental would be applied.
Yeah, I believe
And that
that's
still
what it
brought it
was.
down, still was 18?
I think 18 was the number without that,
Okay.
so
it
it'll
could
come
be
off
better.
a little bit,
Okay.
but. And again, it's a purchase over 10,000, so
Mhm.
we're gonna have to think about how we write that request for quotes. Cause
I gotta tell you, I think that has changed quite a bit. I don't think 10,000 is your quoting thing, 10,000 is the attempt maybe, or making phone calls. Those numbers have shifted a lot.
if it's less than 10, it's sound business practices. If it's 10 to 50, it's still,
It's not a formal request for quote. But 10,
it's not a seal bid,
no, I'm telling you, you could do 3 phone calls over 10, up to,
right, but there's still an
20 something.
but you still have to advertise in those
Right.
3 different ways. And,
Right.
and the rule of award is still the same.
yeah, but I mean, it's not like a formal.
It's
we're
not a
going
sealed
off
bid.
To,
Right.
combis or something like that for it anymore.
Right.
Although if you can find the people on combis, you can do it without that, right? Are these people on combis?
If there is a statewide contract,
Yeah.
then you follow the rule of, or the procedure listed in that contract. Sometimes it's an outright purchase, sometimes it's like get 3 quotes from people listed on the, participating on the contract. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's something different. So if there is a statewide contract, then we could follow that. If not, then we'll follow the 30B process for $10,000 to $50,000, which requires advertising it does require advertising in the Central Register, advertising on combis and the website. But the rule of award is still the same. It needs to be it's the lowest responsible and responsive responder, bidder, whatever we want to call it. So,
Depending how you write it,
yes, so
right.
how you write your specifications matter.
It's critical, yeah. So you leave yourself some latitude in how you evaluate the bids.
Right.
So we really don't have a sense for the last 3 or 4 articles at this point. No.
Do you have motions for us for next week, Brian?
Oh, yeah.
Wanna go through those now? Wanna go through those now? We got plenty of time.
Signing them, you mean?
No, I mean, assigning them, yes, yeah.
Okay.
So the first 4 are government study people.
Do we know who's doing it? So is that,
I'm sure. Next time you see Michelle in the office, I guess, ask her if they're meeting, if they're turning,
Well,
sending them out.
they consider themselves disbanded.
Guess we don't make those motions then.
So isn't that what they think?
That was my understanding.
I thought I heard that Pixley was gonna go to the meeting and present, thought I heard it that.
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
Fine, whatever, okay,
Right.
so,
All right, so
But I
I'll,
don't know if that's fact.
so just put government study.
Right.
Alright. Revolving fund electric charging station.
That's for me, for the whole time, so I guess I'll do,
5 and 6,
I can do 5 and 6, yeah.
about the same, right?
Yeah.
Additional funding for the insurance account,
Well, that's the second biggest amount, that should be done.
Second,
alright. Additional funding for the police department account, career center.
That's correct.
that's fine.
And then we got additional funding for the cemetery commission. That's
Are they-
for the
Probably
cemetery.
Dwayne.
Yeah, we'll do that. Senior center,
Gary.
water district expansion phase 2, are we,
John?
John or Paul, what, John, Paul,
Or
what do you think?
whatever, it's fine.
Ringo?
Pope, John Paul.
John, Paul, Ringo,
Okay.
How about Craig?
Who's doing it?
they're arguing.
I did the last one, so people are getting, Peter Hatch will give me more flack.
He's got the most expensive line, he's farthest off the street.
Fire station, hazardous materials abatement.
Will they do their own, or?
Well, if
Oh,
you three
sure.
don't, if you three don't do it, someone's got to.
He'll live in town, so,
Yeah, the chief can do that, right?
Chief,
The chief can do the generator too.
or Mark Barber maybe,
Yeah.
yeah,
You want me to do it?
probably not.
No. You wanna make sure they know that they're gonna do it, Brian?
They're
Fire.
probably gonna
Yeah.
be here tonight.
I believe they go after. All right, electronic voting system.
Well, it can't be red, so I guess,
I'll
gotta be
do
one
that.
of us, yeah.
I'll do that, I'll take a beating for that. R&W Hills planning improvements. You're always articulate on these.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
are.
I've been living that dream forever, so.
Community preservation would be Doug or something.
No, it's one,
Or-
or one of the park people, I'm thinking, yeah.
Oh, Park and
Oh,
Rec,
part, yeah, because they're
yeah,
asking for it,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, nothing
I mean, between them, yeah.
Okay, real property acquisition.
Huh?
Real property acquisition disposition.
The
Yeah,
easement.
that's
Easement,
what
yeah.
happened. Oh, that's the category?
Grid
Oh, that's,
easement.
oh, that's the EV?
He's doing categories. on
That's the
top
grid
there.
Oh,
easement.
okay.
Grid easement.
Grant of easement, national grid, that's your EV again.
Okay. Never sit down.
You're,
And then you're doing 18 or?
you're like this EV thing, you're like the Elon Musk of Hampton.
So me. That's it.
Am I do
You got the
the,
I'm
moratorium?
taking your Harris sign
I'll
back.
do the moratorium.
I'm taking your Harris sign back.
Moratorium, okay. And then I guess this will be.
Advisory,
Right,
advisory,
right.
advisory.
The last 3 year advisory.
Yeah.
Now we have electronic voting, where are we on that?
I think we should do it.
We expect to get the clickers by the end of the week.
Hey, the government study committee just.
Yeah, perfect. Downloaded the software to a laptop. Started familiarizing myself with it. Hopefully get the clickers. I think they were gonna try to get them to us by Thursday.
I think you said no later than Thursday.
I hope so.
Yeah. It seems pretty doable, pretty easy to use. If, once I do the motions document, he offered if I could send him the motions document, he'll upload everything into all the motions into into a, whatever they call it, JSON file or something, then, we should be good to go. I know the town clerk met with the Board of Registrars, and talked about, the check-in, check-out process.
I was watching another town, they talked about having a help desk if you had a broken one inside the auditorium.
Yeah.
I think it was part of your comments there, what happens if
Yeah.
one breaks, where do they go, et cetera. Yeah.
What's your feeling about the selectmen, if we do secret
We should
voting?
vote too.
We should vote too, but should we be anonymous voting, or?
Well, I mean, how is it different than anybody else voting?
Yeah,
I mean,
how do you track that, you know? I mean, I know you can track by pager number itself, but
Right.
where's it gonna be displayed after that? Just be hand counted for later, or?
So I mean, when they hand a pager out, are they like, okay, looking at your voter name and, okay, I gave
Yep,
Flynn voter pager number 521.
yep. And if that one doesn't return, they know whose door to knock on.
Okay.
Um,
So therefore, they are tracking that. Okay.
that's tracking unless
Unless,
You turn it off.
unless they turn it off.
Correct. And typically, town meetings in this town are open voting town meetings. So if someone were to make a motion for a secret ballot, we would go in, we would click anonymous voting for that article, and you would call the vote. And as you recall, it shows up in that report as, instead of yes or no, it just shows anonymous for all those people who
So
voted.
default is regular open town meeting.
Default is that
requires-
we will
No,
record
regular
votes.
open, everything's recorded
Right.
unless somebody requests a secret ballot.
Right.
But
That
it's
that
not
was my
recorded by
conversation with
individual, is
Rick.
it? It's recorded by pager number, right?
Pager number, correct. But
Which
the
you-
town clerk is gonna have a list with the name and the pager number.
Who has what?
Right, so
So they
those
get
two
the pager
documents are public records, so in theory, somebody could request this document and this document and do
That's
their
a lot of
homework.
work. Forget it. Yeah, who can
And-
care? Seriously.
You could, so, it's just different than normal, cause normally you can look across
I think what
the
Ben's
aisle
question
and
is,
see
so
what
Are we
you,
gonna have ours labeled? If anybody requests? The documentation of how the selectmen voted?
well, they'll be,
'Cause you won't see a lot.
they'll be identified as a registered voter, as any
Yeah,
registered
so
voter.
You can look up by name and I'll have pager number 5. And
Right, but that's not gonna, is that gonna be available to everything?
It would be a public record, so anybody who requested it
Right.
could get that list of
My
Don
guess-
Davenport 5, and then they could get the results from Clicker 5
Right,
for each question.
but is the whole population gonna have that same type of tracking?
Yes.
Yep.
They could have the same kind of thing. Or if someone says, I want a secret ballot.
Secret
then
ballot.
shut it off.
Yep.
And the moderator for that part can even say, he could even say on certain items, we're not gonna use the clickers.
Can you do that separately?
Yeah.
What happens if somebody challenges a vote?
For a recount, it's the normal procedure that would happen
And you
within
would,
I think
raise your hand.
he could do a recount, or I would duplicate the motion, right, because it would be a second vote, and they could run the vote again.
Electronically?
He could, yeah.
Could go like that, or-
I would just add an
or you
item.
could do a standing vote, right?
So they would be giving out cards still, right? Voter
He-
cards? Fail-safe?
I would think so.
I thought we
That's a
should,
question
just
for
in
them.
case something happens and the whole system
Yeah.
fails, you never know.
Right, then you have nobody with cards and
Yeah.
then what?
Right.
But the key is gonna be keeping track of the clickers, because one of the things, when they did the kind of the training, he said that, if someone leaves the room, you have to get their clicker back. They have to go to the men's room, or ladies,
So if it's have somebody at each door now monitoring?
yeah, right, because
Should.
they don't want you, they say someone could leave their clicker with somebody else and say, vote for me on this.
Right.
Oh, then they could just leave.
Right.
Yeah, they could leave.
Right?
Yep.
They could just leave, but not be voting, so
Right.
you're counting these votes, and that person came in, checked in, and went home.
Yeah. That's a problem.
Anything, I mean,
But- but-
every possibility could happen, but.
But the point is, it works in so many towns.
Right.
The other towns have all figured out how to do it, so, I mean,
We're not tilling new ground here.
Long Meadow has been doing it for years.
Oh, that's shining example.
Shining
Yeah.
example.
I don't know how they get it through a town meeting on time. A town with 500 lawyers, you'd be thinking everybody, oh, excuse me. you know. Right?
No appeals. All right. You gonna meet this week or sometime, or just, I know the moderator?
Yeah, we had suggested the 23rd or the 24th to meet. And then I think the moderator and I will meet over at TWB once he's back.
You wanna do some of these, licenses? We will, leave, anything else, selectmen's reports.
I heard from our valiant administrator assistant that we have a new date for the tree lighting
No,
for now, But hey, next week is another week.
No,
But
we're not
right
changing it
now,
again.
this is it?
We're not changing it again.
Okay,
It's going back to the
we're back to
original.
December
Sunday,
1st.
December 1st.
Okay,
5 o'clock for the parade, 6 o'clock for the tree lighting.
okay, and Lauren is in charge of the music.
And Mr. and
Lights.
Mrs. Claus will be there?
They will.
Okay.
And we're doing a
Brian? Brian,
Yeah?
the town administrator has always led us in song during these events.
Oh, good.
We're gonna call Bob.
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
What you got?
We had a senior center building committee meeting today. Trying to, go over what we learned at the forum, what needs to be expressed to people at the town meeting and go from there. Let's see. Planning board, as you know, voted to issue the special permit. And that's it for me.
Master Planning Committee is meeting Wednesday morning, and we're just plowing through the draft chapters of we'll do 2 chapters a week for the next 3 weeks.
Good times.
The Assistant Superintendent Search Committee is meeting tonight. However, since I'm here, I'm meeting with district office tomorrow just to go over what was recapped, and then there's a schedule coming forward.
Oh, and the selectmen, the selectmen will be meeting with the school committee on the 24th, Thursday night, to sign the new lease agreement for Thornton Burgess, because we're moving forward.
Mhm.
The signing will be at Thornton Burgess.
And I would like to thank Joe Zayre's daughter for mailing back a copy of the 1968 town report. Don remembers that well.
It's the year I was married.
The year after the impossible dream, for those who remember the Red Sox,
That's right, yeah.
Carl Yastrzemski and all that. So we thank Mrs. Zayre. Her dad served on the board, my dad, and both good men who loved Hampden. Thank you. Well,
So
Make a motion.
we're not adjourning,
Oh.
we're moving,
Brian.
town administrator. report.
Just quick, Don had mentioned, I sent the final lease amendments to the district for signature on Thursday. I have a draft version of the cable license agreement from our attorney that we'll hopefully pick up after the town meeting. And we'll hopefully get that finalized in short order. It addresses a lot of the things that we discussed in terms of what to request for payment from Charter. I haven't heard anything more about those upgrades that they had talked
Yeah, I was
about.
gonna ask you about that.
So it's
Can
kind
you
of,
reach back out and say,
I will reach back out. It's kind of been radio silence from them about those. I thought it was in short order they were gonna do it.
that's what it sounded like, so let's
so-
make sure they're still following through.
Yeah. And then there's an invitation from East Long Meadow to do a joint household hazardous waste. I think Jane
right,
forwarded the email. We'll have to figure that out. Cause obviously they're looking to split the setup fee and then have
And
like a
that
per
date
car
was
charge
when?
next July 19th. So we got a little bit of time to figure it out, but I think they
but-
need
I
it.
Yeah,
personally
but
for one of those
Yeah,
for-
we're not gonna have a person here at that point, so I think that's,
It won't be Jane,
hate that you say that now.
so,
Oh, come on, we heard that before.
but yeah, it's something we need to get, an answer back to them about that. And obviously it's something we could budget in FY 26, so. But I think they need an answer in the next couple weeks probably.
I'm all for it.
Anything else? Okay, we'll move
Okay.
to the auditorium for the advisory committee hearing.
So we'll be shutting off the Zoom.
We're shutting off
And
Zoom, but we'll go there and
We
we'll
will
adjourn from
after
there.
that, right.
Thank you.
Have a good week.